Welcome everyone to episode 60 of the Looks Like a Movie podcast. My name's Kevin. I'm here with Doug and Owen. Today we're talking about a new debut feature from writer, director, star Julio Torres called Problemista. But first, as always, we're going to talk about what we watched this week. I will get us started because I watched exactly one movie other than the movie that we're talking
Oh,
about.
right, because of fucking
Uh,
basketball.
because of basketball and because I've been lazy and not in my movie watching mood. I'm just tired every day. Like I just don't have energy. Um, I watched Support the Girls from 2018, a movie that I had not heard of until it was recommended to me the other day, and I watched it immediately after. It's really fucking good. I was shocked that this movie that only came out a few years ago was a movie that I wasn't even aware existed. Regina Hall, like one of the best performances of the past few years, and I know she's going to be in that PTA movie, right? So that's pretty exciting. I saw like a real good Regina Hall performance. Now I have even more faith. And Haley Lou Richardson is like, I mean, I've kind of been a fan of her for a while now, but she's just a real scene stealer. She just shows up and is like the best. And I hope I get to see her and more stuff soon. It was really sweet. It was well, I want to say it was sweet, but it was like then it was really sad, kind of. It's just about like the realities of the workplace atmosphere for women, and there's not really a statement at the end that's like super uplifting. It's kind of just like, yeah, this is how it is, and this is what we have to deal with and go through in our lives. And it doesn't really make you feel that great. But everything leading up to that is quite funny and a good time. And you really care about everybody involved. Anyway, that's the movie I watched. I also watched that Spider-Verse short. If that
I watched that
counts.
Spider-Verse
Ew.
short too. Do you want to do?
Ew.
You want to do a
I
half
was
hour on the Spider-Verse short?
no, it was just like I was like, yeah, this is cute. I don't know. I didn't care about it at all. I was like, whatever, that's fine.
It's lame.
It's
I don't
I mean,
know.
it's a short about anxiety made for children. I don't, that's
It's
whatever.
like really
Um,
doubling down on the bit here with that Spider-Verse short.
yeah.
It's
Um,
very silly.
I saw that you didn't like it too much. What did you watch this week, Doug, besides the Spider-Verse short?
I only watched 2 movies this week, which listen, but I watched Strike,
Oh,
Sergei
and
Eisenstein.
how many installments?
In one installment. I
Okay.
sat down and I watched it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Um, and then I watched Days of Youth, which is the
Oh,
earliest viewable Yasujiro Ozu film.
you like it?
Which is yeah, it's good. It's like only real heads should seek it out because it's like not like it's like
Are
not as
you
good as his other
Are
movies,
you
like
suggesting are
it's
you suggesting that our podcast listeners are fake heads?
Yeah.
for Ozu probably.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't-
No, fair enough.
um, yeah. What
Nice.
did you, Owen? Do a recap.
Okay, so I was doing a little Furiosa prep, so I watched Happy Feet, the George Miller picture.
Okay.
um,
It's not where I thought that sentence was gonna
I
end.
watched late style Tony Scott, The Taking of Pelham 123 with
Oh, did you watch that
John
yesterday?
Travolta. No,
Oh,
this is
okay.
like
No.
So we were talking
six
about Tony
six
Scott
days
yesterday, and
ago.
I was like, nice.
Yeah, no, very good movie. John Travolta, late career John Travolta giving a good performance. 2009.
Wow.
Kind of wild for John. I watched Immaculate. I wasn't on the the episode of that, but I
Yeah,
watched
you
it
could do your
after
little
you guys
immaculate
recorded
review.
that. Shit rocks. Very good
Oh
movie.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I rewatched Hollow Man, which I think is my favorite Paul Verhoeven. I was like, I'm painting right now, so I was just like putting that on. I was painting. I watched Event Horizon, the Paul W.S. Anderson movie, which is very good. I'm doing like kind of finishing up Coppola, so I watched The Rain People, which is like one of his first films, and it's one of Vincent Gallo's favorite movie, and it's like very much like there's so much of it that's just like not narratively, but like the way that he kind of frames America and like traveling through like cars and stuff is like right straight out of this to put into the Brown Bunny. There's like a very straight correlation there. And then there's like that in the Tetro, when they made Tetro, he likes an interview like where he's like, The Rain People is my favorite movie, which is very funny. I watched Return of the Jedi, and then I was doing more Coppola. Watched like some of his very early stuff. I watched Dementia 13, which is a Roger Corman thing. It's very much like a Psycho
that's his
thing.
first one, right?
Well, so that is not his first one. His first one
No.
is Battle Beyond the Sun.
Okay.
So Battle Beyond the Sun here is a Soviet like B movie, space movie.
Right. You told me about this.
And I think it's Roger Corman gets his hands on it, and he finds Francis Ford Coppola, college Francis Ford Coppola age. He's 1962, and Francis Ford Coppola's job on this movie is to Americanize it. So they dub it, and Francis Ford Coppola shoots a couple extra scenes with like space monsters, but most of it is not his movie. It's really like another person's movie that he is overseeing the dubbing and making an American movie, and then he shot a couple extra scenes. It's not very good, but I watched that as well. And then I watched The Outsiders, which I really liked. So that was I got a couple more Coppolas to watch, but I'm kind of finishing
this is good insight, both Coppola and Corman related, because we will be talking about them later in the podcast. Spoiler.
Shout out Roger.
Yeah, we'll be touching on that a bit later, so you could give us even more details if you want. But before that, we can talk about Problemista first. Owen and I both watched this earlier in the week. Doug watched it last night.
Yes.
What did we all think? I know Doug did not lock it on Letterboxd yet, but he tweeted what seemed like a very glowing review.
Yeah. Well, so Problemista, right? Off the bat, I want to say, like, if you're on the fence or if this movie like wasn't on your radar, you should check it out. I think for sure you should just like give it a try. It's very sweet. It's a very sweet movie. I like, and there were like moments in the movie where I was like, oh my god, this is like the best movie I've seen since whatever. And then like I came back down to earth. But
yeah, it has some high highs.
Yes, it has like really really high highs. It's probably like it's one of the funniest movies I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah.
Like I can't even think of a movie I've seen in theaters that is funnier than this. Like I was actually like laughing my ass off in this movie theater.
No,
and not just like
I wanted to talk about the comedy first because it's so like specifically understands like the comedy of our time. Like it's like funny in a way that like where the jokes really land and it's like reflective of the world we live in. This is probably one of the only times on the podcast where we're covering a new release and we can actually like summarize the plot for the audience in like a simple way. Like I feel like this is like actually an easy movie to kind of explain. So we can do that first for the listener. So Alejandro has a visa. He is in New York City. His visa is expiring. He's an aspiring toy designer searching for a job. What's the company? It's Hasbro, correct?
Hasbro.
Okay, so he's like waiting for this Hasbro job. His visa is expiring, and he has a month before his visa expires, and he needs to find somebody to sponsor him. And his only hope is a character played by Tilda Swinton, who we will talk about in a bit. But that's essentially the plot of the movie is him trying to get this job before his visa expires or trying to be sponsored before his visa expires so that he does not have to leave America.
I think that this movie should be getting way more buzz.
I agree.
I think it's a little silly that it's not getting a lot of buzz. And okay, here's my reference point, right? And you guys are both going to say I'm very annoying for this, but
I kind of
do you remember Do you
Okay, no,
remember the Everything Everywhere All at Once
yeah,
buzz?
okay. Yeah,
Um,
this is I was gonna, like, make a comparison between this movie and Everything All Everywhere
There's
All at Once,
like
and
a
I thought
very
you guys would call me
strong
annoying for it, so
no,
I'm glad we all kinda see it.
it's like a very strong direct correlation that I thought of when watching the movie, where it's like this feels like I feel like I don't know when this like started or like went into production, but it feels like very much like I mean, oh, this is like with the success of Everything All at Once, like something like this can get made, which I think is great because I
mhm.
think I mean that's really opening up for a lot more stories told by different people. So yeah, it feels like it only exists, or maybe not only exists, but it feels like it's allowed to exist and allowed to be something that's seen by a lot of people because of the success of Everything All at Once.
Yeah.
Which I think is valid because like the movies are similar, but
Yeah.
obviously they're also very
Yeah, no,
different. I mean,
they're
Everything
different
Everywhere
for
All at
sure.
Once is an action
Yeah,
movie.
they're
This is not an action
definitely
movie.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but they're definitely similar in the style of the comedy, and
yeah, if you
there's a
like
lot of
one,
other.
you'll probably like the
Yeah,
other
I would
one.
think
Yeah.
so. Um,
Um.
it did, but it makes sense. It did have that kind of like A24 rollout where they do like the really small limited release, and
Yeah,
then
where
like
they
2
just
weeks
fuck the
later,
movie.
then 2 weeks later it gets like the wide release, but then it doesn't show up on any ticketing apps, so people don't know that it's playing near them.
Yeah, but with
And
Everything
real
Everywhere All at
bad way to
Once,
go
it
about
like
it.
it played at fucking it was like South by, I think is where it premiered. It played at South by, and
Mhm.
then people were like, "Oh, this is the best movie of all time"
Yeah,
immediately.
although I will say, I don't maybe this is just me, like, making up something out of memory, but I feel like this is kind of how it happened was, I remember seeing Everything Everywhere All at Once, like, the day it came out,
Yeah.
and then I feel like there was, like, an immediate kind of buzz the week that it came out that led a lot of people I know to want to go see it in theaters and saw it in, like, those following 2nd, 3rd, 4th weeks. I don't know that I've really heard anybody talking about this movie that way. Like that buzz has just not been
Yeah,
generated
no.
for this
Yeah,
movie.
no.
Um,
I don't
I
I
don't
mean,
think
I
it'll
don't
be
even
lasting
know
in
that
theaters
many
for too
people
long.
that have seen it.
Yeah, no,
Because
neither do I.
we're all like friends or like mutuals with movie people, and all like
Yeah.
a lot of those guys just haven't checked this one out, and it's been out for like a week,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
only
Yeah,
heard.
but they all saw those straight to VOD like fucking shitter movies that came out last week.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
not
mean,
everybody has that's not but it's just like, I don't know, it's
yeah,
like
it is interesting that nobody's talking about it, and I wonder I think it would be, like, maybe not the best approach to market it as, like, this is Everything Everywhere All at Once, but
that would be terrible.
I wonder if the movie was brought up, if more people would be, like, jumping to talk about it and or see it. If somebody had put that out there, I'm sure there's somebody who has. I'm sure there's a review that exists where somebody compares the 2, but I
Yeah.
guess it just has not crossed over to, like, mainstream audiences, and so I don't think a lot of people will end up seeing this movie. But maybe it'll be successful on streaming, like at the end of the year. And you never know, because that is kind of how I don't think this could make like an Everything Everywhere All at Once type of awards push, but like that
Not
is,
No.
many. That's not really
yeah,
that
This movie is
many.
like very small and quaint compared.
yeah, but it is how like sometimes this happens with like a lot of these A24 projects or just like indie films in general that they get this like slow push out and then later in the year when they get put on streaming, everybody watches them and then everybody starts talking about it. So maybe people will end up seeing it. This is like our suggestion for people to go see it while it's in theaters, I guess. Um,
Yeah, because this movie is like, listen, I understand that it's probably hard to market, but it is also, after watching it, like what was surprising to me after watching it was how like this is obviously very broad. Like this is like this will play
yeah,
very well for like I watched it and I was like, oh, my parents would really like this movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
yeah,
and I wasn't expecting that. But Julio Torres, is that your say his name?
yeah,
Or is
yeah.
it
Julio
Torres?
Torres. Yeah, I
Torres?
think it's Torres. Yeah.
He
Um,
this guy
What a
rocks.
what a
I
brilliant guy, yeah, writes it, stars in it, and directs it, and
I'm not
all 3
yeah.
aspects of that he's successful at, I think.
I'm not
But
tapped into like contemporary comedy, so I had never heard
yeah,
of him before, but he was
He's a
like a
writer for
writer.
SNL, yeah,
Yeah.
he's an SNL writer, he also wrote, a show that is on Max, and he's written, or I should say co-written on other films before, but this is the first time that he's directed one. And I think this is the first time that he's written one as like the sole writer.
Yeah.
Um, and he's been like acting in some stuff, although it's like significantly smaller roles and pretty small movies.
Well, I
Uh,
think that it's notable how I was reading some reviews and they only ever reference him as a an SNL writer. And
yeah.
he like came
Well, I
up
think
with
that's
the
his biggest credit to this
well,
point.
Yeah.
well, I mean like as like an SNL writer and not a cast member, right? Because
Yeah.
most of the time you hear about these people that starring in movies are SNL cast members.
Yeah,
Um
but some people do take that route and find like a lot of success. Like there's a
mhm,
lot of people, at least
Yeah.
historically, who have gone like the
The
worked for
writer,
SNL
right?
as a writer, wasn't on screen, and then, got found in like some pretty big comedic films, and then obviously like a whole career from there. So, um, yeah, this is exciting. This is like I feel I I really like how it's written. I really think he's like a good actor. There's like especially comedically, like some of his like I don't know how to describe it, but there's like moments that are so specific to his character, which obviously he understands because he wrote the character.
Yeah.
But there's just like little bits of his delivery where I'm like, this is really fucking funny. Like the way like kind of like the shyness of his character and like some of the interactions he has and like his unwillingness to speak up in some of these moments. I'm just like real small details that seem very thought out. And those were like some of the funniest parts of the movie to me.
yeah, every scene almost feels like not like every single scene, but like most scenes feel almost like a stand-up bit that has been like fleshed out into the scene of a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's been like fully realized. Because like a lot of these you could like imagine being simplified into somebody just like explaining the scene in
Yeah.
stand-up and it being funny. Um
Yeah. Speaking of explaining, how did you guys feel about the voiceover? Which is it's done by
Someone
uh
cool.
Isabella Rossellini.
Yes, yeah. Um,
Yeah, I thought it worked. I think voiceovers are tricky because I think
Right.
a lot of time, like I've many a case where a voiceover immediately starts and you're like, oh fuck, they ruined the movie. Like the movie's just fucked. Because like
Right.
a bad voiceover is really tough to overcome because that shit's just like in your face.
Yeah.
And I think coming out of this movie, it's like I kind of forget that the voiceover was there, which is a good thing because
Probably effective, yeah.
it's either like, oh, a really positive thing or a more neutral thing where it's like, it didn't bother me or affect me. And I think I mean, I'd much rather have that than something where it's like, oh, that voiceover really tanked the movie for me. I thought it was fun in the moment, but it's like,
Yeah.
wasn't really something like amazing. But I
That
do think it's
yeah.
tough to, it's a tricky thing. Like, it's a tricky line there.
I think it's navigated well. I think he found the perfect person to do the voiceover for it because
Yeah.
I think the sound of it like really matches the tone of the movie. I was like, this is
Yeah.
I like it fits pretty seamlessly into the movie.
Which
he
is a
found
hard thing
just
to
like
do.
an incredible cast for this
Yeah, I mean,
movie.
I was about to bring up Tilda Swinton next,
Yeah.
who is just like kind of I mean, this might
Yeah.
it's just like possible that the year ends and this is just my favorite supporting performance of the year when when we get to
No,
the end of
she
it.
should. I mean, talk about everything everybody all at once. She should get some award buzz if what's her name
If
did.
Jamie Lee Curtis won,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this is like there's like
No.
maybe I don't think you could name 10 actors alive right now who could even like come close to doing this as well as she does.
Well, she's just so singular in her like
Yeah.
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
that she acts that it's like no one else is
Yeah,
doing
you
what
can't
she's
really
doing.
imitate
She
Like
it.
really fully realizes
every
the
time
character.
she's on screen, it's like it's such a singular thing that no one else could really do.
It's kind of a yeah, Tilda Swinton's the GOAT, one of my favorite actresses. Like
Yeah.
even more
Yeah.
so now and after this, just one of my favorite actresses. But she's like and this role is very difficult
Right.
for her. Maybe not. I'm not saying this is a difficult role because it's you're playing like kind of like the worst person ever, like somebody that
Yeah.
everybody hates, like
Yeah.
fundamentally, but but you have to play them with like such a great deal of empathy, you
Yeah.
know? It's
Yeah.
very difficult, but she does it very, very, very well.
I mean,
Um,
that's why, like, I think this is maybe a unique experience to me and apparently not a lot of other people. This is something I wanted to touch on later because I was reading a number of reviews where people were talking about her character in a way that, like, doesn't totally resonate with me. I feel like sort of immediately, like, pretty early on, I kind of found myself feeling for her character because I feel like she kind of immediately brings like some humanity to this pretty awful person that I don't think I would have cared about if
Yeah.
maybe any other actor on the planet was playing her. But like sort of like right away, I was just like, I kind of get her. I was like, she kind of sucks, but I was like, I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
like, I don't know, like it's a like you said, Doug, like it's a complex part to really nail down because so much of what's on the page for this character is just like
yeah.
characteristically the worst
Like the
things
worst.
about a
Yeah.
human. Like they really just throw them all at you. It's
yeah.
very much like I guess what people would refer to as like a Karen type, like in every single interaction that she has. But I don't like. I was like, this just makes sense. Like you can kind of see how her worldview is shifted by this relationship that she had, and like you just kind of feel for her. I was like, I kind of just care about her a lot. Like I don't
I
know.
think that but also I think the movie does a good job at communicating why she's like this, and like kind of like
Yeah,
justifying it in a way that I think makes sense. And it's like, yeah, she's
yeah,
kind of like a whatever. She's kind of like not the nicest person in the world, especially to service workers. But
right.
also, you see like her in like these situations and like her lifestyle and how she is, and it's like, oh yeah, she's like just a very anxious, like pent up
Yeah.
personality. Um, and I
With
don't know, it's yeah, it's
no,
easy to
I get it. And I think one aspect of the character that makes her easier to hate on that I noticed in a lot of those like negative reviews I was reading is that she like clearly has a lot of money. Like she's like she has like three different homes and so when you're like a person of wealth and then you're also treating service workers like shit and like everybody around you like shit, then it's like maybe I shouldn't really care about this person at all. And they're really banking on a lot for you to see this relationship she had with her. We didn't. I guess I didn't mention this in the plot summary. Her husband is in like a how would you describe it? Like a cryo
yeah,
chamber
Yeah.
type of
cryogenic
thing, like
chamber.
saving his body to be back in the future, like hundreds of years in the future or whatever. Um, so she's pretty much been abandoned by him and left to take care of his cryo chamber contained body
Mhm. And
until he comes back in the future.
yeah.
And
Yes,
I don't know. It's just like
played
that's
by
a
the RZA.
yeah, true,
Which
true. That I
yes,
didn't even mention that either. Yeah.
um,
Uh it's just like that's a lot. And I get that complaint that like, oh, she's like a miserable rich person who like doesn't treat people very nicely, and you really don't have to care about miserable rich people. Um, but I think it's explained in a way that really makes sense. And I think that by tying it into this relationship that she has with Julio Torres's character, it it just like it just makes you feel for both of them because
yeah,
their dynamic is really strong.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Um,
I think it's why it's so impressive because like obviously Tilda Swinton's so like acclaimed and successful, and we know that she's gonna bring like it to the table. But from Julio Torres' standpoint, not only is he directing it, which is like obviously that's a big part of it and why it's successful, but his performance is like that has to work, right? Like if
Right.
that does not work, the movie does not work. It's very much on him. Everything is on him. Like and one like he could direct it well. The script could be good, but the performance is make or break here, and I think he knocks it out of the park. I think the the relationship there is like that is just if that doesn't work, the movie doesn't work, and I think he does it really well. So it's
Yeah.
very very impressive as a debut.
So the specific complaint that I was referring to that I saw from a lot of people that I'm curious how you guys feel about it because I know maybe this isn't something that matters to you guys as much.
Yeah.
But I saw a lot of people complaining that by the end of the movie, her character doesn't really have an arc, that she doesn't change.
She does, but
Right, right? That's what
Yeah,
right? Like, I
yeah,
was like I saw
that's
so
the
many people
thing.
complaining about that, and I was like,
Because they're talking about how at the
"Doesn't
end of
she
the
though?"
movie, she like there's like a full circle moment at the end of the movie where she's bitching to the surface worker, and then she goes like, Alejandro, the files are out of sync on my iPad, and it's like, which is something they've been complaining about the whole time. But that's like, those are the those are like the fundamental changes that old people do not change. And this is also like a realistic part of the movie too, where like those are like fundamental things that old people just do not change. When they start doing stuff like that and they do stuff like that their whole life, they will never not
yeah,
hyperfixate and do that shit. But they change, but it's changed like her relationship with Alejandro has changed, and like her like the way that she feels about certain things has changed. It's not like she's not a different person at the end of the movie, but that's not,
yeah,
that's not what the
But
arc
it's
has
all
to be.
yeah, it's like, 1, yeah, that's true. She doesn't have to be a completely different person, and 2, like, the movie proved that somebody could, like, crack that armor. Like, the
Hmm.
movie proved that, like, she's not, deep down, she's not, like, an evil, malicious person as much as she is, like, somebody who doesn't have a good relationship with other people around her because of how the world has treated her. So, like, I think it's like I don't know, it's a bit of a weird complaint, and I think it comes down to what I was hinting at before, which is just that, like, if she's that much of an unlikable character earlier and there's, like, not really a dramatic shift, then there's not really a reason to like her by the end, I guess, from somebody else's perspective. Um, but I thought there was, like, quite a obvious arc, for that character,
yeah,
so I don't know that that's, like, the most
Yeah, but the arc
fair thing
isn't
to
like
complain
she starts
about.
being nice to people because
no, no, that's
That's
it's
not
like
gonna
a little bit
happen.
more nuanced than that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I
Um,
appreciate that, like, some people are just, like, kinda mean, and it doesn't mean that, like, you can't, like, peel those layers back, and I think that's, like, maybe not the key theme of the movie, but, like, something about it that I really appreciated is just, like, to kinda give these people a little bit more consideration, and maybe not her character specifically, um,
yeah,
but to just understand that, like, sometimes people who come off that way are not, like, malicious about it. I mean, sometimes they are, and that's, like, truly the case for a lot of people, but it's, like, a pretty clear indication that there's usually a reason for that kind of behavior, and sometimes people deserve to just, like, have somebody who recognizes that a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
I really like the part where she kind of, like, tells Alejandro to, stick up for himself, and she gets him, like, that guy's name, and then he just goes to
yeah.
the office and, like, confronts that guy. How did you guys feel about that scene?
Well, I mean, so that's for me is like the biggest like it's not really about there's like her arc, but I think it's most importantly his arc that
Yes.
Right.
like what he gets from her, and I
Yeah.
think
She
that like that
changes him.
that moment is like the big moment where he is finally able like to learn like how to kind of because you kind of have to boss yourself like boss your way around to get someplace, and he learns that from her and sees how she's able to be successful in the way that she maneuvers around with people. So that whole big scene is like the big moment where you see that he is finally, or not finally, but he's learned something from that experience, and this is what he's got, and now he's gonna you know, be able to achieve his dreams, and like that's the big moment for the movie. There with I guess
Yeah.
an
Like
arc, if you want an arc.
yeah, it's like he cracks her armor, but then he like picks up from her. It's like, oh, you know, I don't have to be like small. If I just have like the confidence of a white woman, I can get so far in this world, you know? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's um
I
it's yeah, it's like a give and take with their relationship. And
yeah, and I think
um
it suggests, like, a greater idea about how really, like, our entire world, at least, like, in the US, I imagine this is I can't really talk about how it is in other countries, but, like, really just kind of, like, points to how this entire movie, he clearly has talent. He gets his idea stolen, so it's
Yeah.
obvious that other people think he has enough talent to use his own ideas, and it's, like, very indicative of, like, the fact that you just have to do things and that everybody is kind of just like there are a lot of people in high positions of power. There are a lot of people working jobs that you wish you had that are not more talented than you. and and it
yeah.
is just about like doing things and figuring things out and like talking to the right people and I think like this suggestion that you can tell yourself that you don't have the talent and that like you're not good enough to be doing this thing. Like most of the people doing the thing that you want to do are also not good enough to be doing it.
Yeah.
And like that's a really important thing for people to realize about how like any workplace works is just like a lot of people who are quote unquote professionals at their job, they just got the job. Like they might not even be
Somebody's got to
that
get the
good at the
job.
thing. Yeah, like
Yeah,
they
it's like
might not
this
even
is
be
somebody
that
has to
good
do
at the
this,
thing you're
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
aspiring to do. And I think when we talk about like the, you know, like the American dream and all that, like the
Yeah.
bigger like central idea, I'm like, that's really what it is just like finding yourself in the right places and like doing the things that you have to do to get to those places because like everybody's just trying to figure it out. Like everybody's just, there's not really anybody that has like
Mhm.
that's like on such a higher level than everybody else. And I like that the movie kind of like peels that back in a way. And like once he confronts somebody, they're just like, all right, we're gonna give you the job. Like it's like I don't
Yeah,
like what
yeah,
else can we do? Like we gotta give it to you now, I guess. And then he gets
Yeah.
it.
yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, maybe it's like a little bit far fetched that it turns into like him being like the world's most famous toy designer and blah blah blah. But
Mhm.
like, you know, it is.
Yeah, but
I,
mean,
I do think it's a good idea.
it's the very over the top like kind of tone of the movie
Sure,
where it's
right.
like there was they he had to become the greatest toy designer ever. You know,
Yeah.
it just that's the only way it would have worked. You know.
What did you
Uh,
guys think about the running Craigslist joke with like the cut to the cave kind of
Um
thing with like that Craigslist character?
I think that was a really it's honestly I was walking home from the movie. I was thinking about this and I was like, that bit is the kind of thing that I would not like on paper. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I don't think it's the best bit ever. I think it's but I think it's like funny, especially like the first it's kind of like funny every time it happens actually. It's like a funny bit. But it's one of those things where if like, you know, if I was writing a script with somebody and they pitched this idea as like a recurring bit, I would be like, "No." You know, like
Right.
what are you talking about? Um
yeah.
but it's I think that we're kind of in an era, maybe not, maybe an era is too strong, but I feel like that we're like it's kind of cool to see this is like it's a smaller studio, but this is a studio movie getting like being able to just do like bits like that in the movie that are just like, oh, we're gonna have um Craigslist personified as a gay black man that lives in garbage, and that's gonna be Craigslist. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's I mean that's a silly bit, sure.
It's just like I think it's really indicative of like how committed Julio Torres is to this specific vision, which is like not my favorite thing about the movie, but just like something you really appreciate when we are in a time where we're kind of like watching more debuts than ever because people are being given more opportunities. Like we see a lot of debuts come out every year and I think a lot of them fall into this kind of trap of because they're a debut, someone is sort of like, for lack of a better term, like playing it safe, and so they end up just being like good movies where you're just like, oh, this is a person who can make like good,
Yeah,
great
yeah, yeah.
movies, but this isn't the great movie. And I like how
Sure.
Julio Torres is just like, I'm making the movie that is like mine. And even if like every single joke doesn't land, or even if it doesn't come together to be like this perfect vision, there's like nothing compromised about it. Like he's just like, this is the movie that I wanted to make, and like this is
Mhm.
clearly my vision, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to play it safe. And I think that's how you stand out among all of these debuts that are being made. Like I think that's how you get to the point where it's like, we're gonna make another Julio Torres movie, like we're gonna fund another Julio Torres movie.
Mhm.
So I really liked that about it. I don't know if you guys are on the same.
Yeah. No. I
Yeah.
think yeah. And okay, we're being very nice though. The movie,
Sure.
it's like it does have actually my favorite bit in the movie is fucking Tilda Swinton has like the flashlight on her phone,
And it
and
never
like
shuts
Yeah.
off.
and it never shuts off, and that shit is so funny because it's so understated. And it's so like that's such an
Yeah.
old person fuck, like it's like a dumb old person thing that actually happens all the time. um that- that's a great bit. um this movie doesn't look awesome. uh
Mhm.
it's shot very um it's like hmm
Yeah, I had this like kind of conversation with myself when watching it. I was like, it feels, I don't know, it very much exists like in another. It's I don't
it's
even know what the
functional maybe,
like I don't
like
even, yeah, I don't even know like the way you would describe it, but it's like it's not, yeah, it exists like in a way where the form isn't really like, I don't know, like I feel like it's it's modern in a way that like is like retracted from like form, in like a way that like form isn't the focus. Um but I
Right.
don't even know, like it's like hard to explain. But I think like
there's
it feels like a modern debut in that way.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at when I was like, this does feel like a debut from somebody that's not like a debut feature film from somebody that's not a director, you know.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
but with that being said though, there's like evocative imagery still, but it's not,
Mhm. Yeah,
but
but
Yeah.
it's not.
like it
Yeah, no, and
um
it's a weird like I don't
yeah,
really know how to
it's
explain it,
the
but I think
scenes
that's
where they're talking are shot just kind of like, oh, because this is how you shoot scenes where people are talking, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
But I mean,
which is
how old is he? I mean, he's young.
30. I don't know, how old is he?
Probably
um
around there, I would
Yeah,
guess. I don't think he's very old. He's
yeah,
yeah.
37.
30.
Oh
Whoa,
wow,
whoa,
wow.
whoa, he's the youngest 37-year-old of all time.
Wow.
What?
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, he does not look 37.
Wow.
No, he
That's
doesn't look
pretty
37.
crazy.
37.
Maybe
I
27.
There's
You
guess like, well,
know.
because like that's how old Robert Pattinson is, right? But no, Robert Pattinson looks older than him though. Like that 30s, like
Yeah,
that's
Robert
crazy.
Pattinson
Yeah,
looks like a
fucked.
fucking man.
Yeah. Um.
Uh, I get what you guys are saying. That's true. I think those are like the strongest part of it is the writing, which
Yeah.
like he clearly
Yes.
has a
Yes. Well,
background
it's
in. So like that's why he's the most confident going for that stuff in the writing. And like the rest will probably come later. Although I will like, it is a good we did already say like it is a good
yeah.
performance and he
No.
clearly
Well,
has
I
like
No.
think
that as well.
it's
Yeah.
there are
I would be
visual
like
and
super pumped up if he decided that he wanted to direct another movie. You know, if
Yeah.
like he decided that
yeah,
he wanted
yeah.
to do that, I would be super pumped up for the next one. Um. Because I really really like this movie a lot. Actually, so like I was laughing my ass off the whole time, and at the very end when the credits were rolling, I was like fucking crying. I was like broke down and cried. I don't know what was going on.
Oh,
Um,
I fucking cried when Tilda Swinton got that voice message and she and or when she sent the voice message and then he kept it and she
Yeah.
saw that he kept it, I was like, man,
Yeah,
that's so
no.
sweet. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like that like made me so emotional. I hated that I started crying in the theater during that. I was like, nothing. I can't like think of another movie that has captured something that specific. Which is like how I feel about a lot of the movie in terms of like the I guess like how true to real life it is with like the flashlight thing and just like all these like really detail oriented ideas that just make the world feel so lived in,
Yeah.
despite the fact that we don't really like go to all that many we go to like places that he kind of imagines like the Craigslist thing or whatever, but like we don't really
Or him fighting
go.
her where she's like
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
hiker.
like
exactly.
Like,
the
Like, we
drag,
don't
like
go
a
to that
hiker.
many, like, real places, but it
Yeah.
feels very lived in because of the way that everything is so specific and because of how things going on in the background of every frame are, like, so specific. I really like that. That was such a sweet moment. I was like, "This movie's just really lovely." I was like, "I really, really care about everybody here." Although I don't know that I was, like, as I don't know that the ending is my favorite.
When they go full
Way
interstellar.
I don't know if it's my favorite
yeah,
way for this to end.
I like
Um,
it a lot. I like it a lot.
no, like,
I don't know.
I don't dislike it.
It's
I just
very
like
sweet. They
yeah,
didn't have to do it, but I think,
no, it's sweet, and I think it makes sense. I think it would be I mean, it would be strange if they hinted at this whole like, the whole crux of the story really was just, like, this kind of, like, going to the future thing, and they never did it, you know? Like, they
well, they
kinda
never did
I
it,
mean
then the implication I think would be that they died, right?
sure, yeah,
Um,
but, like, I don't know. It makes sense that they
Yeah,
go to
it's
the future.
yeah.
I just don't know that, like I feel like I was more emotional during everything leading up to it than when I actually got to the ending. I was just like, "Okay, yeah, that's sweet."
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
There's more specific little moments that I thought were much sweeter in, like, their interactions throughout, that by the time I got to the end, I was just like, "I don't know, I kinda wish it moved me a little bit more," but maybe it's just because I was expecting it. Maybe it's just because I was like, "Yeah, I mean, this is the natural place for this movie to go."
yeah, that's fair. Um,
It really takes a swing at, like, making a joke of it too as well, where it's like, he's the greatest toy designer ever and, like, that whole thing. I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, like, played for laughs a little bit, like, it takes away from maybe
oh,
how."
yeah, the toy design stuff though I think is cool. Him being greatest toy designer ever is very silly because he would not be because of his ideas.
Right?
But I like how he
The
in the
toy
movie,
designs themselves.
yeah, the toy designs themselves, it's obvious how it's like, oh, this guy wants to be an artist. He doesn't want to be a
Yeah.
fucking toy designer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This guy is an artist that wants to make art that thinks he wants to be a toy designer, and I think that
What's
Tilda
what's the
Swinton,
one
like,
with the snake that pops up and
yeah, it's like,
it's
hey,
like, "I'm
sorry for
sorry for
scaring you.
scaring." That was the cutest shit in the world.
Yeah, he just wants to make like interactive art. He doesn't make toys for kids. And I think that Tilda Swinton, when
So
she like finds his notes, like recognizes that and is like, oh, you have a lot of ideas, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very sweet. I like that stuff. Um,
I'm just looking at like the top letterbox reviews right now. The part where like the voiceover is like it's like the one guy got like a Guggenheim grant to pursue being cute in the arts. I was like, that's a
bro,
good joke. Like
yeah,
these are
that made yeah.
these are really fucking it's so funny. It
Well, the
said
whole sequence when she says that, which is kind of like at the towards the end when they're on the tram setting up what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
think is going to be basically getting to the place where they're going to sell the paintings, right?
yeah.
And it's like she's freaking the fuck out because they forgot one of the paintings on the station, and she's like, "Somebody's gonna steal blue satin egg." And
Yeah.
he's like, nobody's gonna steal blue satin egg, and she's like freaking the fuck out, and she uses like the Dune voice on the trolley
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah.
I found the exact it says, "I'm sorry I was trapped in this can and scaring you was the only way out."
Yeah,
What did you guys think of the eggs?
I see. It's like the obviously intentionally like very like simplistic paintings that are not. It's like
Yeah.
it's like it's not actually like an artist's like life's work were these eggs, you
Right.
know. but I think that um the way that he was kind of like the characters were like putting meaning on them, like the scene where they're trying to figure out like, oh, what is the order of the show, and he's like, oh, what if we end with this egg, and she's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 and he like explains why. I think that was very beautiful and
Mhm.
very cool, even if the eggs like aren't actually very good.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree. That was a good moment.
But
Um,
they're like simplistic enough, and they're also like very like even like they don't really even go like one by one and like give us a rundown of them, but like we they do a really good job of like understanding and like articulating and showing us like the eggs, and like we get the eggs, we understand them, and we understand it. I don't know the
Yeah,
way
we see
that
like
like
three different people explain the eggs, like
yeah,
explain what the
exactly.
paintings
It
mean.
is
Yeah,
like it's like I don't know that whole it's done in a way that like I think it's simplistic enough that we can get it and like we understand, and those are the eggs, and we I don't know, I think it's done well, and I think it doesn't they don't really have to be good or like that's not really
yeah.
the point.
yeah.
And just kind of the way that the information works in kind of I don't know, something about eggs and like just like the simplistic nature of that works well.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up?
Yeah, the RZA is fucking awesome in this movie. He's so good. Um,
uh,
and Greta Lee just
I
comes
was
in
gonna
and does
say
like a
Greta
heat
Lee
Crowley.
check.
shows up. That's
She
Greta
just does
hilarious.
like
Lee.
a heat check in the middle of the movie where she's like, "I'm an
Oh,
incredible actress."
she's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
so good.
yeah,
He was like, "Let me sit down, say 10 words, and then fucking cry on screen." And
Dude, when they open the door and it's her, immediately I was like, man, she's kind of the fucking best.
yeah, she's really great. Um,
um, I guess that's it then.
yeah.
Okie doke. We're gonna talk
Problemista.
about some news. Obviously, reminding everybody to share your feedback if you liked listening to us talk about Problemista. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, rate the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on all our social platforms, and you can join the Discord if you want. Uh, we've split up the news into two segments here. We have our actual news, and we have what we'll start with, which is the Megalopolis news. Not that it's not actual news, but the Megalopolis news requires maybe a bit more
It's news.
depth. So I have broken down a lot here. I have a summary of the entire Deadline article that I could read for the listener.
Well, that's what I
And
was just thinking. I was like,
yeah,
what if we just like read the entire article?
no, no, no. So
Well, obviously not, but
I pretty much have written a summary that is essentially the entire article. I skipped the parts that are stuff we've already talked about before, but
Yeah,
I can go over this all in detail, and then if you guys have anything you want to say, we can jump to that after.
okay.
Okay, so for context, Megalopolis just screened for the first time. It was an IMAX theater screening at Universal City Walk for buyers, and every distributor was in attendance, as well as family, friends, and filmmakers. I don't have to list all the people, but there's a lot of famous people
It was like
there.
Al Pacino and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
So
Kaylee Spaney and John
Mike
Favreau.
Fleming Jr. in his Deadline article describes it as crackling with ideas that fuse the past and the future. He says it plays perfectly on an IMAX screen and that it covers complex themes in a remarkably brief 2 hours and 13 minutes. In the article, he writes a summary of the story, which says an accident causes the destruction of a New York City like metropolis that is decaying anyway. Brings clashing visions of the future. On one side is an ambitious architectural idealist, Caesar, played by Adam Driver. On the other is his sworn enemy, City Mayor Frank Cicero, played by Giancarlo Esposito. The debate becomes whether to embrace the future and build a utopia with renewable materials, or take a business as usual rebuild strategy, replete the concrete, corruption, and power brokering at the expense of a restless underclass. In between their struggle is the mayor's socialite daughter, Julia, played by Natalie Emmanuel, a restless young woman who grew up around power and tires of being a tabloid fixture looking for meaning in her life. Then he goes on to say that the nods to the Roman Empire are not coincidental, that it is a cautionary tale of what happens when people try to adapt and overcome problems, but the human spirit is challenged by greed, corruption, and narcissism. Before the screening, Coppola delivered a mission statement that read, "As heard from me before, I believe in America. If I could leave you with one thought after you see my new film, it would be this: our founders borrowed a constitution, Roman law, and Senate for their revolutionary government without a king. So American history could neither have taken place nor succeed as it did without classical learning to guide it." Coppola told him that he didn't expect everybody to get Megalopolis right away. He lists a bunch of distributors that were there and says that they were all effusive, crowding around Coppola after the finale. Now, at this current moment, it is for Coppola and Barry Hirsch to find a distribution partner. And they said that they won't decide on where to debut the film until that partner and a firm rollout plan are secured. And then finally, Coppola says that this won't be his last film and that he's begun working on the next one. He said it won't be cheap by any means, but I don't know if it can be called an epic film. And then as a quick extra thing here that I think you guys also would like to touch on, in a separate World of Real article, I've just pulled 2 paragraphs that have been quoted all over Twitter, so I'll just read that in its entirety. It says, "Roaring off the screen, roaring into your eyes and ears. It's a Francis Ford Coppola film and also feels like it was made by Ed Emshwiller? Emshwiller? Is that how you say his last name?
I don't know.
Okay. It's expanded cinema, very engaging. It doesn't drag at all, constantly entertaining, visually arresting, and you have to constantly work to keep up with it. You've got to follow it. A startling film, highly visual, reminiscent of 60s experimental cinema, Francis's youth coming out at age 80, the independent cinema that he grew up on. It's wonderful, larger than life, a jump off the screen movie, and it's incredibly personal. Driver is Francis here. It's not like any movie that's out there, avant-garde and experimental. There's an overlaying of images, but it works incredibly well. More like One from the Heart, shot in an unreal world. It's a big metropolis, possibly in the far future. The film never says when." And that is all of the details we got from
Are you
all
fucking
of this.
kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Okay. A lot of information here.
Dude, God, bros, did we win? We might have won.
There's really not a detail here that doesn't sound like the best thing in the world, like the best piece of news ever.
Really, like it's so interesting because it's like the way that the Deadline article and especially the World of Real article kind of read, is like it's like, oh, it's like a quote or a statement that's like, this is going to be the greatest movie of all time. That's not what they say, but that's how I read it, right? And then
Yeah.
like the next statement is like, nobody will like it and it's not going to get any distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
A lot of like doubters on Twitter for whatever reason.
Yeah. What?
It's like I don't, it's,
I don't
it's,
know. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't really make sense. And one of the things that I've like noticed, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like so many of like the casual like viewers who like don't really care about his movies often reference that his like, later stage work is bad, but I'm like, did
They've
people
seen it.
even watch these
Yeah, they
movies?
haven't
I'm
seen
like,
it.
you guys,
No,
like, I'm like, nobody
no.
even watched these movies. Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean it's
yeah.
bad? I'm like, you didn't even. None of these people have even seen it, so
No,
it's
they
like
No.
go on
really
Rotten Tomatoes and they see
confusing.
that 15% by Twix, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
that's
reminds me in a
silly.
way of not that specifically, but it reminds me of when Avatar 2 was coming out and like the negative kind of reception to James Cameron. And it seems like any artist who is like really actively, and it even reminds me of, in a way, Bradley Cooper and Maestro. Any artist who is really trying to achieve something in the film space, anyone
Mhm.
who has a goal, a really big goal, and really going out there for something,
And is passionate.
and is passionate about that. Any passionate artist who is really trying to make something, there is a part of the internet that is a highly negative towards that, and they reject that instantly, and they say, "Oh no, this isn't going to be good," or "This is bad," or he's not, I gotta say all these things, and it's very weird that people aren't excited about like
It's
passionate artists.
despicable.
It's very it's I don't know. It's like I don't know. Like it's very much like you should. It's like shut up and dribble ass. Like it's like
Yeah. It's
we just
also
want
just like a
make the movie.
crazy
Uh,
story to not just be excited for,
yeah, I
Like
mean,
it's like
there's
because I saw like someone bring it up. It's like even if you don't like the movie, if you just know how this movie got made, like if you just know what he did to finance the movie
yeah.
and get it like made, that should be enough for you to be like, I'm going to the theaters to watch this movie. Like I want to watch this movie, you know?
I I just
Yeah,
don't see any reason not to be excited for it. It's I don't know. He's like one of our most important filmmakers of this, whatever you want to call it, the past so many years. And
ever, just one of the most
Yeah,
yeah,
important
ever.
filmmakers ever. What
no,
are we
but
talking
it's
about?
like, yeah, exactly, sure. It's like I don't know,
Um,
and this is, I mean, the words that we're talking about, like this is the future right here, and like it's very interesting because it's like the people that are there are some young filmmakers that are like pushing towards the future, but it very much feels like the future is being guided by the old masters at this point, and I think
it,
it's very fascinating.
it's interesting how like the guys that you hear talk about cinema as an original art form that has like its own possibilities, that is totally removed from any form of like literature and or
Yeah.
painting, right? That it's like, oh, cinema is like its own thing that can do its own thing if people wanted it, like wanted to let it do that.
Yep.
um those are people that are usually like older, that have weird haters and like weird
Yeah.
tastes.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
even like the young generation of filmmaker, like the newer generation, it's like so obvious that all of the best ones have like the most respect for these like these older
Yeah. Yeah.
filmmakers,
Yeah.
and you can tell by like the way that they talk about movies and who they cite and like their references, that that's the reason why they're the best of like this new
Hmm.
generation. Like that's a I feel like a pretty clear divide between these like new filmmakers and or the good new filmmakers and all the other ones.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, I think I understand that there's like a level of like job security that you kind of have to
Sure.
have as like a younger filmmaker, where it's like I understand, but like I that's why I think it's like for like a guy who's like 84, it's like fuck it. Like what else am I gonna do? So like there's like this level of like really that you'd wish that you kind of would get out of like a younger filmmaker, but it also is like a thing with like something like you really flop once and you could just be thrown in the you don't want to play with
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
anymore
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
like I
Mhm.
understand it from like a that level where it's like, but I don't know, it just seems like the old grandpas running the show are really striving for like something else.
Well, even like somebody like Godard, may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He is universally recognized, even way more so than Coppola is, because
Yeah.
Godard, like, because Coppola, people make an are able to make arguments that he is not the reason why his masterpieces, or like the movie that are recognized as masterpieces, are
Yeah.
great,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the sole reason, which is whatever. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the people are able to like make that where they're like, oh yeah, he made The Godfather, but The Godfather's great for other reasons. Well, whatever. But um,
Sure.
and you can't do that with Godard, right? You cannot remove Godard from the success of any of his movies.
Yeah.
And Godard is similar to Coppola in the sense where like they talk about how it's like, oh, like you can really do anything, or like you could really do stuff that you can't do in any other medium in this medium.
Yeah.
Um, but then it's funny because like people do that, and then but they do the same shit with Coppola with Godard, where they're like, "Oh yeah, his old movies are good, but then when he
Yeah.
got
Yeah. Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
then he started making bad movies."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so silly. It's so silly. Um,
I blame Tarantino. I do.
Honestly, kinda, right?
It's like he kind of sucks. Fuck that
His- yeah, I
guy.
mean, he's like, it's a young man's game. Old people suck. They are washed up. Like,
Yeah.
okay, buddy.
All
And it's
right.
funny, but I almost think that's a. I was thinking about this. I was like, that might it. Cinema's so young, right? Like it's only been around for so long, right? And
Less than 200
the
years.
yeah, the what is the word called? The like the our sample size is so small,
Mhm.
right? So like when you have the filmmakers that Tarantino was talking about that kind of fell off in old age. That's like the first wave of filmmakers, really. It's like
Got
that's not
old,
like
yeah.
it's like that's not a big enough sample size. That's just one generation, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that doesn't like it's hard to be like people only get worse with age when like you're really talking about like one generation of filmmakers because there's really not like it's only been around for so long. So I think we're learning here in this kind of next wave where it's like, oh no, wait, there's actually this there's a lot to gain from age and there's a lot from learning and it's like I mean it may not be a critical thing, most of the time it's not a critical thing and you're not, but the thing is to be experimental and to push the medium, you're not going to be widely accepted and loved. And there's a thing where Coppola, I love this interview with Coppola, he's talking about all of his films were not universally loved at first, even The Godfather and in part two, when part two came out, they said it's not as good as Godfather Part One. When Godfather Part One came out, they were like, I don't know, it's always a mixed thing. I think he said like they always say that he was promising, but there's always a mixed response.
Yeah.
And so it's yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. It's very fascinating to think about because it's so new. It's such a new thing, so it's really hard to we don't have thousands of years of filmmakers to really like.
Right.
Our sample size is so new, and then I think it's I think it's important. I think older filmmakers are so important because it's like it's the thing. Sometimes people get bored with filmmaking because you master it. What else can you do? But then when you have a filmmaker like Coppola or Godard or even Scorsese, like all these old people, they've mastered it so that they have to go in another direction. And now you're really pushing it. Now you're really experimenting because you understand it so fully and complete
That's
that
what I
you
was gonna
have to
say.
go and you have to try something else. And
Where
that's when true like real experimentation happens is when you have no other direction to go but this way.
where
Right.
like Scorsese, I think, is like really kind of the example you could use that people will understand. Where
Yeah.
it's like he's in his 80s and he is making kind of like the most provocative like major works of his whole career
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Between Irishman and
Mhm.
Killers
Goes
of the
without
Flower
me.
Moon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, Let me ask you guys this because I I don't I don't know that we could break down all of this entirely piece by piece. So
Yeah, yeah.
let me ask you if there is a specific detail from all of these reactions, all of like what we have read here that excites you the most.
So this doesn't excite me the most, and
Go
so
first,
this is
Doug.
not me
Yeah.
answering your question, but
Just a
there is
specific detail you want to talk about. Let's phrase
Yeah,
it
but
that
yeah,
way.
there's a detail that you didn't put in your summary, which is fine because it's a little minor. But I
Saying
think it's
something.
so funny, and it's that Jack Black
yeah.
Oh,
was
right.
it's like Jack Black was just like on set of Megalopolis. He's not in the movie. He was not involved
Yeah.
in the production, but he would just show up on set to watch Francis Ford Coppola work. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I forgot
But
to I know, I mean, I read that detail. I didn't include it because I was like, I'm trying to like stick to like what we know about the movie. But when
right.
I read that, I was like, oh, that I was like, okay. Jack Black's
Jack
just hanging out.
Jack Black is kind of insane, and I think like I love that he is like someone in the culture because it's like he's talking about like when Minecraft like he was in a Minecraft movie and they like gave him a world and he's been like really hardcore playing Minecraft and like then he's on Coppola's sets and he's
Yeah.
doing these like all these like random video game movies. Very interesting kind of guy that we
So
have. I was
curious
actually
where his tastes lie. Like,
yeah,
I'm
no,
so curious. Like,
I was actually looking at his filmography last night actually after whatever reason. Very interesting guy.
Yeah.
Shout
Well,
out. That's like
I
he
was
should be
like,
in the. I'm interested because you mentioned it earlier that Coppola has another film that which is like
yeah. So
insane because
you
we.
think you should cast Jack Black
No,
in the
well,
next one?
I was just we were. I remember me and Doug were discussing like it's like I don't even feel like I feel like this is a good conclusion, but it's
He's so
such
old.
hard. Yeah, it's the thing. He's 84, right? Which I think as I'm kind of talking about each filmmaker, it's like an 80 someone's 84 is different from someone's 81. Like you could it's like a Ridley is 86, and I feel like with Ridley he feels like so youthful at sometimes, and but then with Marty he's 81. Marty's around he's
Yeah.
younger 80s, but Marty
Yeah.
feels so old, and it's
Mhm.
like it's 80s is tricky because it's like someone's 80 could be like someone's 65,
Yeah.
because of just the health
Right.
reasons. But so I really have no idea with Francis, because we rarely see him, right? But I don't know. I feel like I can't even imagine another movie, because it's. But you really love to see it. But I'm like already like thinking about all the people that could be in that movie, and it's like I wish just everybody was in that movie. I just
Well,
wish
yeah.
because
We
it's
already
like
talked about how it's 13 years since Twix came out. Like,
what's the thing? But I
yeah.
I don't think necessarily that's a production thing. Like I don't think it's I think it's more of like I want to make this big one and I need to like
Yeah.
actually get some money.
Yeah.
But it's like it would be like I think there should be no actor on the planet that wouldn't work with Coppola
Millie
for
Bobby Brown probably
for
wouldn't.
no.
Probably, yeah.
I'm saying there's no actor that like with any fucking respectable artistic bone in their body that would not work for Coppola with the SAG minimum. Like I just feel like
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying like if you're Jack Black or you're even like I don't know. I don't even know who I'm saying, but like I think I
Well,
would just love to see like everybody in that movie. I want because why not? Like why wouldn't we do that?
and
I
what you
just want
say,
to.
like
This
somebody
is
might
it.
hear what you say
This
and be
might be
like,
the
"That's
last movie.
crazy."
This is it.
But
This is the last fucking Coppola movie. Get your ass
Yeah.
in that shit, Nicolas
yeah,
Cage.
yeah. Well, I mean, like it's
Cage.
like Scarlett
Nicolas
Johansson.
Cage, Matt Dillon. I want Matt Dillon back. All the Coppola
Yeah,
guys. I want every Coppola guy ever to be Coppola.
yeah.
Get Jim Carrey back. Every guy who's ever been in a Coppola movie should be in that last movie.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. should be like, I'll do this for
Yeah, do like show up for 1 week, Robert Downey
yeah.
Jr. I don't
That
know.
would
I
be,
just
It's
that would be a
it's
come on.
crazy run. Imagine Robert Downey Jr. going from like Doolittle to Oppenheimer to the
Dude, the
Park Chan
fucking
Wook TV show
yeah.
to the Coppola movie.
Come on,
Um,
Mark Ruffalo. Let's go.
I
yeah, come on,
am
Mark Ruffalo.
I
Go,
am a
Mark
little
Ruffalo.
curious. I am a little bit curious about what that cast would look like though, because that last quote that I pulled was him saying that the next movie
Isn't as
won't be
epic.
cheap by any means, but he said I don't know it can be called an epic film, so I don't know what the like it's seemingly hinting
He's
at the
gonna
fact
cast
that the
Martin
next movie is going to
Scorsese.
be a smaller movie than Megalopolis.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Megalopolis is like the epics to end all epics, so I don't imagine
sure,
him to try to make a
sure, but
bigger
I'm just
epic than
saying,
that.
like, yeah, I'm curious to
Oh
like
yeah, I mean
how
there's
big that movie will be, because he still says it's not going to be cheap. So maybe it's not going
Right.
to be cheap because he's just going to pay a lot of actors to be in it.
I don't well it's like I think Megalopolis cast is so interesting
Yeah,
because
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
Megalopolis
I
is kind
mean, I think Natalie
it,
Emanuel being one of the biggest like characters in the movie is so cool. Fucking love
yeah.
her.
Well, I mean, remember Oscar Isaac was attached to it once upon a time.
yeah. It's
But
like
I mean, Adam Driver is a guy where it's like Adam will work for nickels and pennies if it's the guy's name is on the billboard,
Yeah, I mean, he has the
So
most artistic integrity of
and
any.
then
you
I
have
mean,
literally any
and
actor.
then a
Like,
bunch of the other, and then it's like a bunch of people that are just like a part of the Coppola thing, right?
mhm.
It's just Coppola's guys, and then it's like Shia
Yeah,
LaBeouf,
like Jason Schwartzman. Like,
it's
yeah.
Schwartzman, Talia Shear,
Yeah.
John Voight. Probably forgetting someone else, but it's like Coppola guys, Adam Driver, and then some like I don't know what level I would call them, but it's like Aubrey Plaza, Natalia Emanuel,
Like
and
A- actors, B+ actors.
Esposito.
You know what I mean?
I don't think Natalie Emanuel is very famous. I mean, in
Natalie
all
Emanuel
fairness,
is at the
she's
bottom
like,
of those, but like
yeah,
I'm still saying like Esposito and Plaza aren't like
Yeah.
yeah,
They're
that's
like
true.
B+, A-, like not
yeah,
like as
but it's
famous
like
as like
those are like I don't even know how to explain it, but like those are like bang for the buck. Like those are good gets for how much you're probably paying them. So like
yeah.
it's good casting, right? But it's not like we're not working with like superstars here. So it's interesting
Yeah.
because I don't know.
Outside of Driver. For
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
but the
who's,
thing is,
like, the
Driver is a
superstar.
superstar you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
get for cheap, right? If you're Chester Coppola.
That's a good point.
But
Yeah.
normally you can't do that, right? Normally you're not getting a guy with Driver's talent for, they're probably not paying him too much, but like Driver will work with an auteur, whereas most of those like guys in his name recognition won't.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Wes Anderson thing. Same thing with Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah.
Where it's like Wes Anderson puts
Well-
together like the most ridiculously.
Well, that's what I see. That's what I
yeah.
want from
Yeah.
the last one. If we're doing one more, I want like a Wes Anderson type thing where it's
Yeah.
just like all the guys, you know.
Yeah, it's like
even if they're-
everybody
you just
is
show
like
up for free
clamoring to just
lunch
be
and
in
no
it.
even
Yeah,
if
exactly.
even if it's like a really small role, like bring back Matt Damon and like just everybody,
Yeah.
everybody that's ever worked with Coppola. It's like a big like you guys. I don't think you've ever seen the Big Fish, the Tim Burton movie, but there's a scene at the end of Big Fish, and it's the guy's dying, and there's basically Big Fish is like this big story, and he's telling the story of his life. And the end of Big Fish, it's Ewan McGregor's character, and it's not Ewan McGregor's character. I think it might be Ewan McGregor. It's Ewan McGregor's character, and he's dying, right? And it's every guy we've ever talked to in the whole story at the end, and they all come, and it's like this big like send off, right? It's everybody who's ever worked with Ewan McGregor, and it's like I don't know, it's just like kind of this. I think it's such a beautiful way to like conclude things, is to have every guy from every story. So bring back Al, bring back Rob, bring back everybody. I think it's I'd love to see that, but I don't know. I think that's like that's all I'd kind of hope for the send off would be bring as many guys back, because he's worked with so many great actors and so many great films over the years and all this stuff, and I think there's so many great actors there.
But with Megalopolis, though.
Back to Megalopolis. What is on the thing Kevin asked, the information that you like the most?
The image on images, images over images.
Yeah.
When they said that was the biggest.
They said like
so
Apocalypse Now, but more experimental.
Yeah, no, yeah, that like that whole quote of like whoever that guy is that like gave that quote, he kind of saved my whole life.
Yeah.
That's
like
really
Roman
awesome.
Empire stuff. If it's just like this like deep philosophical thing, I'm gonna be like, that fucking rocks. I'm gonna get on my philosophy kick before the movie comes out if I see it. If I see a trailer and actually I you kind of know by the character descriptions because the names already hint at it.
Yeah.
Like I'm literally just gonna pull out all my fucking philosophy books and just and just get in the right like headspace. I'm just gonna like,
yeah,
that's
it
so
sounds
fucking
like
cool.
Some people might listen to this if they are super Megalopolis pill to be annoyed by us, because the three of us have not read the script that has been on the internet for fucking forever. Which is fine, like whatever. We're not gonna read it. Until the movie comes out at least. But from the plot, it sounds like from this description that like outside of the romance stuff, that it's like about like maybe like global warming or like environmentalism.
Right. Yeah.
And like also about like the corruption and in like communities, and how like communities are self-destructive.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely what it said. That's definitely what it hints at a little bit. Also, like the Deadline article didn't mention it, but the romance thing you hinted at, one of the other descriptors from some source was like the Romeo and Juliet comparison, which is not in the article, but that fucking rocks. That's like such a good detail as well.
This is just like
if it's both of those things at the same time, like if it both manages to be like an epic Romeo and Juliet romance, and then is like, climate change or something along those lines, that's like the best
the
movie
experimental shit in terms of like that is I kind of expected that, but actually hearing 60s experimental overlays in words is like, but the Romeo and Juliet thing in terms of a narrative sense is something that I'm so excited for. I think the kind of descriptions of the characters, I think that adds so much to it. I think that I'm really super excited for that, and I
This
don't
is a
know.
2 hour and
That's what I was
13-minute
about to say. I was about to say
movie.
that. That's the thing that people are going under the radar here is that the movie's only like it's less than 2.5 hours. It's only
But
2 hours and 10
but the
minutes.
article also says that it covers complex themes in those 2 hours and 13 minutes remarkably, which means it
But they
probably
say,
touches on all of this stuff and, like, manages to fit it into 2 hours. Like, it probably
but I
all
mean,
works,
I
which is
think
crazy.
it says it says it runs like a fucking train. They were going really
Yeah,
fast, but it's like, hey,
Which
hey,
makes
keep up,
sense because
keep up.
that makes sense because that's I think that's what Coppola one of the bad things about him, right? One of our favorite filmmakers. One of the bad things about him is I think his editing philosophy, um not that the philosophy is bad, but like how serious he takes it might be a bad thing. Where he's
right.
like, as he gets older, I think he's like in his mind, the shorter and shorter the movies have to be, um, because he keeps re-editing these movies and making them shorter in the
Yeah,
re-edit, and it's so I don't know. It's very we'll see. I feel
Yeah.
like there's probably like a 3 hour cut of this movie that
Sure.
existed
Well,
at some
I saw
point.
I saw
Like
someone say, like, what if the final movie is just like a 3 hour cut of Megalopolis? And I'm like, I mean,
we have no. Oh,
uh,
here's another thing that we actually should really, really talk about before we move on from Megalopolis: the distribution situation.
sure.
yeah.
Um, this sucks. It sucks
Yeah.
because they said no premieres. Like no, they're not even going to talk about like where it's going to premiere. So that means can is out. It's not playing at Cannes. Like confirmed now, basically,
Yeah.
not playing at Cannes. Um, and after that, it's like okay, so is it going to play at any festivals? Is it going to play like
Yeah.
what's going on here? Somebody
Is
like,
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I don't
but
know.
also,
What was the quote that said something along the lines of like this is the perfect film for like Neon or Searchlight to pick up, I think it was. I don't know. There was a quote like something
I
like
don't
that where
know.
it's like one of those studios has to take a chance on this.
yeah, Searchlight. Me and Owen kind of talked about this off mic. Searchlight would be really cool because they have so many resources.
Yeah.
To like actually
Yeah.
like really push movies and like because like Poor Things was Searchlight, Banshees of Inisherin was Searchlight, like these movies that were
Films
like
that won awards,
yeah,
Yeah.
big
um,
awards.
Yeah.
All it's funny of me and Doug follow some like Adam Driver like fan accounts on Twitter, and they are all like, no, not Neon, not Neon, because of the way that Ferrari was pushed out. And
Uh,
I love the way that it is a very singular way of like consuming the film culture, because it's like kind of solely through Adam Driver. So like
right.
any guy or anything that's involved with Adam Driver, they're like super fans of. So it's like the Heat 2 news, right? That's big for them. If their view of Neon is through Ferrari, it's very interesting to
Yeah.
kind of like watch that unfold. And they're big Megalopolis. They're super excited for that. That's the coolest. That's like where I got some of the information. Is they are very good at tracking down Megalopolis information. They're like the spies
yeah, they
for
see it before everyone
that.
else. I swear to God.
Yeah, they're tapped in. They're super tapped into anything Adam Driver. So I don't know. That's just a funny little thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah. So who knows when we're going to be able to see it? Also,
yeah.
why why do you think they're doing this? Like why do you think they're like, "Oh, we need to get distribution before we before we do a premiere?" Because that's not usually how it goes.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
usually
know.
like
Right.
you'll granted that is how it goes a lot of the time. Like where like Neon and A24 they will enter Can with their movie,
Yeah,
right? That they hope
I
wins the Palme d'Or, but that's not always how what
yeah,
happens.
I think it's such a specific situation, and I think you they really want it to be done right. They
Mhm.
really need the right hands. So it's like, I don't know. I think like what Kevin read earlier, about they're all gathering and they're all around him, and I do think he will find good distribution. I
I
just think
think
he.
I
I don't
kind of
know.
think he won't. I
No.
maybe I well because like my thing is like it sounds like he wants a very specific deal that
Yeah.
involves like a wide IMAX release.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we are in a time right now after
Yeah.
we are in a
Yeah.
post Dune and post Oppenheimer world where that is tough. because
Yeah.
that is
Well,
very.
that's the
It's
thing.
very.
I do think he does. He does want that IMAX release, and he says this. Like, I think he's very adamant that this movie plays on IMAX screens. The whole thing with like
Yeah.
them showing it on IMAX screens.
I could
But I don't know. I
I
mean,
don't
it's
know.
such a sick.
I
It's
don't
such
know. That's tough.
a
I don't
situation
know
that
that he sadly, I don't know that he has like the
Oh yeah,
name recognition of like a Nolan for a younger
it's crazy.
generation. However, I do think that that's like
Just put from the director of The
still
Godfather
yeah,
on
I
that
still think
trailer.
that's a way that you can like sell people on it because I think they value that kind of like I mean we're getting a PTA movie in IMAX. Like I think they do kind of like
What's the thing?
value
It's
like
like get
let's
fucking
give good
Apple on the
directors
phone,
premium
man.
formats. Like I don't like I think there's a world in which it gets that because I think there's a way to market that to people and I think they see the potential of like this could go from being one thing which is like a movie that just does sort of well to being like an Oppenheimer
Every trailer.
because of like how people talk about it because it becomes an event when you get the IMAX screen and it becomes more of an event if you have like a good
yeah.
director attached to it.
This has
And
to
I
be
think they
marketed as
see
the
that
event of
potential.
the year. It has to be
Yeah, that's what
marketed
I'm
as the event
saying.
of
I'm
the
like, I
year.
think there's a world in which they could spin this to be a very successful movie. And if they see that, then they would have a reason to distribute it because it's like, and give it like a proper IMAX screening
Yeah.
because they can sell it that way. They can be like, this is the guy who made The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. And this is like his life's work. And it's going to be playing in IMAX. And like, you have to watch it in IMAX. And like the casual person is going to be like, the guy who made The Godfather is like it's like like
and they're gonna hate it.
I could no sure, but like I could see it working.
It's gonna
and
be
also
great.
I could, but it's also like I don't know. You know what I thought about that is like maybe this is me being like a little bit dumb, but the I still like kind of struggle other than like the moments that are very like clearly curated for like a TikTok audience. I still struggle to like understand how the average person doesn't get bored watching Dune 2. Like I'm like cuz I remember what the reaction to the first Dune was and how many people were like this is slow and blah 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 and I'm like the second one is longer and does a lot of the same things, but people were like told that this is like the event movie and they were like this is a movie you have to love and I'm just like can't people have the same reaction to like Megalopolis even if it isn't that like palatable to them? I'm like can't people just have a reaction that's like I was told that this is this really important movie and I was like supposed to experience it on IMAX and so I have to go watch it in theaters and then they'll watch it and they'll be like that was fucking nuts and then like you know what I mean like it's like I could see that reality like I could see that being a thing and maybe I'm like being a little bit optimistic about it but it's like I see how like these things can happen and I still feel that way about something like Dune 2 where I'm like do all these people really love it because I'm like these are the same people who thought the first movie was like too slow and I'm like this one a lot of times is kind of slower because it's longer and like it does a lot of the same things when there's not action so it's like I don't like I'm like obviously different because it's Dune 2 doesn't like get experimental doesn't like do all these things that Megalopolis is obviously going to do that might distract people a little bit more but I do think there's like a lot of power in just being like here's this really famous director who's made really good movies and you have to watch it on a big screen and you have to like it and people are going to be like well I do like it like I think it could happen.
Bro, I mean it's like to me and maybe this is me like just really not like living in a fantasy world but like to me I'm like bro George Lucas should am I gone? No, I'm
No,
still
you're
here.
here.
Okay. Sorry. George Lucas should like call fucking Bob Iger, right? And say like,
Call
"Hey,
Bob up."
I need you to do me a favor and have
Yeah.
Fox Searchlight pick up Megalopolis, and
Yeah.
like do it on Francis's terms. Like, I need you to do me a favor and do that, or I
That
need like
George,
Nolan to call up fucking Universal. You know what I
that's
mean?
what I'm saying.
Like,
It's just like someone has to stand up and be like, "This is
Yeah.
serious. This is something that
yeah,
needs
like
to
this
Yeah,
is
be."
this needs to
serious,
be done.
guys.
This is serious.
I don't know. I
Um,
mean,
It's like,
Francis is. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. I bet George. I think George specifically I don't really know what he's up to. Was he at the screening? Did it say or no?
I don't. He did not say
He
that he was
listed
there.
in the names
Damn,
among the
wow. Yeah,
article, but,
well, that's
like,
the thing.
it's I mean,
Yeah,
there's probably major
George
names
like
that
kind
were
of
there that
owes
aren't in the
his
article.
career to Francis Ford Coppola to an extent, and like I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean it was when
And
Martin
same
Scorsese
with
when his
like
only
all those guys,
yeah.
Spielberg and it's I just think come on, someone do it. But I
Yeah.
think
But
it's
here's the
like
thing. Like here's the thing, guys. Do we think that these guys do we think that maybe even though they're friends and like there are contemporaries, right? Do we think that they kind of maybe view Coppola? You're gonna hate me. That they view Coppola like he's Brian De Palma, maybe.
that's what I'm saying. Well, I was just about to say that it's like what the fuck was
Yeah.
Tarantino when Brian De Palma is like in the slums
Well,
and
but maybe they think that like, oh, like he's washed, like
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean, or like he lost it,
What
like
did George Lucas think of Twix? Is what we're really like. That's what.
yeah, like I don't know.
That's why I think that's why you show it.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
I don't know.
we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's the thing too. It's interesting. I don't know. I really don't understand. This is a very unique thing that he's trying to do here. That him
Well,
and
yeah.
his
This
team.
is
It's not just
not.
him. It's him and his team, right? Trying to do here
Yeah.
with Megalopolis, where instead of like, because I thought that it was like, oh, they're gonna play it at Cannes with no distribution. I really thought that's what the plan was, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, they did a special screening in Hollywood at the Universal City Walk in Hollywood, which is like
Yeah.
I'm assuming not, the three of us have not been there, but it's a really really nice movie theater. Second biggest. It's the biggest IMAX in Los Angeles. It's like it's a very big movie theater. Um
Yeah.
and yeah, but doing like this special screening where like they just have all the distributors like come watch it alone with like just his friends. Doing that instead of playing it for a crowd is interesting, you know? Because if they play it for
Yeah.
a crowd and it's like, oh, what if people at Cannes or people at Venice like really like it, and the distributors are all there too at like these like big festivals too. Um, that's like it that would maybe be different. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Um, are we ready to speed through some other news? We could just rattle them off here if you guys want.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. We're gonna start with what we talked about last week because now we have an update to it. After me and Doug thought that this was a possibility for whatever reason, Euphoria season 3 has been delayed indefinitely, and the cast is free to work on other projects. HBO explored several possibilities, including Sam Levinson leaving, but the cast, particularly Zendaya, Sweeney, and Elordi, are committed to seeing it through with Levinson for a third season. We don't really have much. It's not going to happen. We're never gonna. We're never gonna get season 3. Me and Doug last week kind of hypothesized that we would talk about it on the podcast if it happened, and now we kind of have confirmation that that'll probably never be a thing.
I
I hope
think
it
that
does
the most
happen.
interesting piece of news about this Euphoria season 3 that came out since we recorded the last pod where we talked about it a lot, so
Oh, the
which just
Zendaya
coincidentally,
thing.
no, not like the fact that the three guys like that Elordi, Zendaya, and
Sydney
Sweeney
Sweeney
all were like, you know,
committed to it. Yeah, it's
well
weird.
yeah, but they like all were like we would only do it if Sam Levinson is attached, because like they were saying like HBO was considering just like firing Sam Levinson and
Right.
having a different showrunner come in and do season 3, and the three of them were like, we will not come back if you fire Sam
Yeah,
Levinson. That's crazy.
I know, because he's not good is
Yeah,
the
that's the
one
thing.
thing. And the other thing is like, I don't know. I find it weird that like at this stage in their career, they're so committed to television because it's like so the opposite of every other trajectory that we've seen for a rising star, which is like this is how most great, and I'm not calling Euphoria great, but just in general, like this is how most like really successful great shows get like cut short is it blows up and then the stars from that show get movie projects and then they leave the show early and they have to either like rewrite the show without their characters or end the show. Like we see it all I mean we just saw it this past couple of years with Sex Education where they had to replace like half the cast because everybody in that cast like got jobs and they were all like I'm not coming back and nobody like and they're like, yeah, we like the show, but like we're fine. Or even like the what I watch, Sex Lives of College Girls. Like Renee Rapp is like, yeah, I mean, I'm becoming a real star. Like I don't really need to be on the show. And she's like, I love the time I spent there, but I'm ready to move on with my
Yeah.
career. Like it's like that's what you do with TV is like
Yeah.
you just leave. So
Most shows
it's very
aren't the
strange that
Bear. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's really strange that they're so committed because I'm like, even those other shows I just mentioned, you guys are like 10 times the amount of stars as those people. Like Renee
Yeah.
Rapp is like really elevating her career. Like she's not even close to the name that Zendaya is. So
Well,
it's like,
Euphoria
I
has
don't know.
become like the like I don't
Yeah.
know, the top 4 guys in that show are like gonna be the biggest young actors
Yeah,
of
but it's
like
like, I don't know. It's a bit strange. Speaking of rising stars, Timothy Chalamet has signed a multi-year deal with Warner Bros. To collaborate on future projects as a star and producer.
I mean,
Crazy.
it
Crazy.
kind of cements him as like the star when you say, okay,
Yeah,
Tom Cruise is doing this, and now Timothy Chalamet is doing this. Those are the
yeah,
2 guys that are doing this. It's like such a superstar move where it's like these are our 2 guys in Hollywood right now, which is
There's
yeah.
crazy. And
there's
it's
a
also
rumor
yeah,
that Chris Nolan is gonna sign a Warner Brothers deal too. It's just a
That would
rumor,
make
but
sense. That would
his
make
his
sense.
his the,
which
the
He's
is
his
like he's like
Universal
the
deal.
star
Yeah,
as
because his
well.
Universal deal just is over now with Oppenheimer. So they're
yeah,
saying there's a rumor that he might go back to Warner Brothers.
which is crazy if Warner Brothers is able to do this flip here.
Mhm.
Because Warner Brothers, we're talking about Warner Brothers in the fucking dumps, like Zavlov's has them in like the worst situation possible, and then they sign, we're getting Tom Cruise, Timothy Chalamet, Nolan on the way. Like it's like
Yeah.
okay,
Is the next Christopher Nolan
what is this?
project a Tom Cruise, Timothy Chalamet starring Timothy Christopher Nolan movie?
Honestly,
That would-
it's up to Chris Nolan. 'Cause I think
yeah,
Yeah,
that like I mean,
I mean,
obviously Timothy Chalamet would do it, but I
would
think
do it.
Tom Cruise would do it too. Yeah.
Chalamet
yeah.
would do that shit in a fucking heartbeat. I mean,
Yeah.
that
And then
dude.
Killian would still be in it as a supporting character. Like that cast would be
Yeah,
stacked.
yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
Nolan's one of Nolan might be like kind of like it's like Nolan and Scorsese are probably like the 2 guys where they can get basically any actor in their movie
Yeah,
if
I
they
think
wanted
quite
to.
literally at this point there is like not a bigger draw than Nolan for an actor. Like I don't think there's
I
any
think Scorsese
actor.
is like the same.
Maybe, but like I don't know
Scorsese has
the
a
way people
different
talk
like
about
draw.
Nolan now, like it's like a different kind of draw. Like the way you hear actors talk about Nolan now, like there is nobody who would not just like
Which is
if
funny.
Nolan reached out to them and he was like, I want you, like they don't even need to they don't
Oh
need a
yeah,
script, they don't need to hear like anything about like they're like, yeah, I'm in. Like that's
Yeah, it's like the Wes
just
Anderson thing,
instantly.
but even stronger, I think.
Yeah.
And
it's a
Wes
different
Anderson's funny
thing.
because like he likes to do it. Wes Anderson's
Right.
like
Yeah.
he's like, oh, okay, Tom Hanks, you could be like the seventh Bill
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
movie.
yeah. Oh,
That'll be interesting to see. Next up, Lee Winnell's Wolfman, starring Christopher Abbott, has been delayed to January of 2025.
That makes sense.
yeah.
I mean,
No,
well, they're
that's
Yeah,
the thing.
shooting it now.
That's the
Like,
thing.
yeah,
Is it when they're like, oh, this is coming out in October and we're shooting it now? It was like, oh, okay.
yeah, that's
Is
not.
that possible? And then I was like, I guess it is possible. And then they changed it, so it's like it sucks.
It was like
January,
kind of expected, and it's also not
but
that
yeah,
like significant of a pushback from
exactly.
the expected date. Like it's not like they're pushing it back a
Yeah,
year
yeah,
or
yeah,
something. They're
yeah,
pushing
yeah.
it back like
Um,
a couple months.
which I,
we need to stop acting like as like a culture in movies, right?
yeah,
That just because a movie is going to come out in January means it's going to be bad. We need to eradicate that way of thinking. I
yeah.
think.
Well, I was thinking, I was about to say, that at that time, October, that quarter is going to be a busy quarter for this year. And when it's January, I feel like it's going to be. I think balance it out a little. So it's not the worst news, because I
Yeah.
mean, if that movie came out this January, it would have been like the big movie because there's not really much going on right now. So
Bro, it's gonna
I
be
don't.
fucking. What is it? Wolfman and Mickey 17 next January. What
Yeah,
the fuck?
It'll be the best
let's
January in
go,
a
let's
long time.
It might be
go,
the best January of all time.
Yeah, it
let's
might be the best
go.
January we've seen. I imagine the next piece of news is irrelevant because I don't think either of you have seen the first movie,
No.
which is that
Oh,
Ready or Not 2 is in
oh.
the works. Have either of you
I've
watched this movie?
No. But
Okay.
the big part of that news is not who are the guys? Radio Silence. They're not doing it. It's a different director attached,
Right.
which is that. So it's gonna be bad. So
Yeah, at least Samara Weaving's coming back. And she's pretty fun in the first one. I don't know. I mean, I'm the only one who's seen it,
Was
Yeah.
so
Samara
it's
Weaving in Barbie?
And Barbie? No.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't I
I
don't
don't know.
believe so, unless I'm
Okay.
just
Okay.
like
Okay. Sorry.
I'm just going off
Okay,
the
all
top of my head. I don't know.
right.
I forget things. I don't know.
No, I don't think she was.
I don't think she was
No.
either. She should have been probably.
Next next piece of news. Austin Butler to star in Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing, a crime thriller that follows a burned out former baseball player as he's unwittingly plunged into a wild fight for survival in 90s New York City.
I see a
It'll be-
lot of
it'll
people kind
probably
of
be
being
good.
a little excited about this.
Yeah,
I'm
it'll
gonna
probably
be
be good.
honest. I like some of
probably
the
be
Darren
good.
Aronofsky movie. He just made the worst fucking movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. You know, I
It'll
don't
probably
know.
be good.
I'm not very excited
Maybe
for
it
it,
might
but
be
I'm
good,
sure I'm
but
sure
he
Austin
probably
just
Butler
be
made
will
The
be good
Whale.
in it. Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll
Yeah,
be good in it though, but I'm not like excited for the
I'm gonna be
movie
so
itself.
honest. I don't know if he's gonna be good in it because every performance in The Whale was fucking terrible. So I
Yeah,
don't
but I
know.
think I don't know. No, yeah, I
I
guess
don't
you're
want an
right.
Oscar.
I,
Yeah,
I forgot he did that. Yeah, he.
Here
it happens.
I don't want anyone for me.
we go. There we go, Austin Butler.
Speaking of news, you guys are not excited for it all.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Spider-Man 4 will reportedly begin filming this fall, and Zendaya is set to return as MJ. We were just talking about how
And they want who? Jason Lin?
I, it doesn't matter.
No, but that's
Yeah,
the part of the news is they want the guy who did the
Fast and Furious.
yeah.
Fast and Furious Jason Lin. I was just
You
looking
mean
at a
Which
Jason Lin
Justin?
movie last night.
Is
Oh,
that was it? Justin Lin? I knew it was something.
sorry, Justin.
Jay
Just
Lin.
yeah, Justin Lin.
I've never seen
Justin
this
Lin.
movie, so I don't.
I was just talking to a friend of the pod, past and maybe future guest Aiden about Star Trek. We were talking about Star Trek last night because I don't. You might not put this. You probably didn't put this in the news, but because they just announced that they want to do a Star Trek 4, like another Star Trek, like Chris Pine universe Star Trek movie. And Justin Lin directed the last one. He directed Star Trek Beyond.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, I just
Justin
thought the
Lin's
most. I thought the
good.
more interesting piece of news was that,
Is
like, well, it's
how
not
big
really
of an
interesting.
upgrade
I
from
could
John
post.
Watts is that?
Huge.
Probably
Does it
pretty
really
big.
matter? Does it really
Probably
matter?
pretty
That well,
big.
that's the
I
real
mean,
question. It doesn't matter.
no, no, I don't think it does. What you guys just fucking? I literally just said it doesn't matter, and then you guys were like, "Oh, it's Justin Lin." What the fuck? And now you're
Well,
saying it doesn't matter. Like it's been a
I think
minute
it
since
is.
you said that to me.
I think
It's
it is
literally a
important to.
minute of podcast
I
time since
think
you
it
guys
is.
just.
I think it is important to bring up. I think it's important to mention in the news, but I also think
Okay.
it's important to ask, like, is this matter? Does this matter?
Okay. Fair.
Fair.
I can't believe you guys just did that to me like that. That's crazy. The last piece of news is this is like barely news, but I put this in here because this is like very much Kevin news, which is that Emily Henry was asked about the possibility of casting Paul Mescal and Iowa Debris in one of the upcoming film adaptations of her romance books, and she said, I can't confirm or deny anything with casting for any movie, but I will say those are two of my favorite Irish actors. And I think there's like a very the piece of news doesn't show it, but like you do a little bit of background. It seems like it's like very possible that those two might be getting casted in one of these Emily Henry adaptations. And that's exciting because she's gonna like I mean those are like
Yeah, they're
that's
fine.
good stuff. That's good stuff for the rom-com.
Yeah,
Um, I I
that's fine.
liked
You said Emily Henry, and in my like gears started going off in my head. I was like, I've heard that name before, and I immediately like was
yeah,
like,
you know,
oh
just
right,
like
I have an Emily Henry
best-selling
book.
author, like one of the most famous authors on the planet right now,
I
Emily
have the book.
Henry.
You don't have to.
No,
I
I
got
know.
it.
Yeah, I see that.
um,
I just bought her newest book.
normal people.
I just bought her newest book the other day. Normal People. That's not an Emily Henry.
But I just have that book with right
Oh,
here.
okay. You want to do the whole shelf tour
Sure. Here's
or
live cinema, and it's techniques
Okay.
by Francis
All
Ford
right.
Coppola.
Anyway, I think my understanding is that all of the Emily Henry books, except for the newest one that just came out this year, or technically 2023, I guess, all of them are currently like being adapted into films, or like it's like a work in progress for like the other three books for people we meet on vacation and beach read and book lovers. So they could really be in any of those. I would be excited to see Paul Mescal and Io Debris in any rom com, but I think that this is interesting. I'm curious if Emily Henry would be writing the script. I don't know. Either
Do a
way,
little what's her name? Flynn?
Gillian Flynn,
Yeah, Gillian Flynn action.
Gillian. It's Gillian. Sorry,
Julian?
her
Julian
name.
Flynn?
Her name is Gillian.
Cillian Flynn?
She pronounces it Gillian.
Ki- Gillian.
I know it looks like Jillian, but it's Gillian. I'm reading one of her books right now, Dark Places. Really good. It's I like her a lot. She writes books about people who hate themselves. It's really good stuff.
One of the best bits on the podcast, probably.
Okay, that's the last piece of news. We could wrap up there. Next week, episode 61, we will be talking about Monkey Man and the First Omen. So
It's a huge
we
episode.
will see
Huge
you later.
episode.